This program is intended to be general in nature and should not be used as a substitute for advice from a qualified health provider.
Loneliness, fear, stress, and anxiety. While social distancing is starting to slow the spread of coronavirus, it's also taking a toll on us physically and mentally. On the next Health Matters, we'll help you take care of you, from advice on dealing with kids and working at home to making changes so that you're not packing on the pounds, and tips on working in a workout when you can't go to the gym. Right now on Health Matters.
Health Matters is made possible with the support of WSU Health Sciences Spokane, WSU College of Medicine, and by Providence Healthcare.
With every twist and shout and every mended heart, we see you. You who trusts us to take care. Providence, health for all, care for you.
Good evening and welcome to Health Matters. I'm Teresa Lukens. We hope that you and your family are well. As we continue to follow the coronavirus stay-at-home order, which experts say is saving lives, we're being challenged in ways like we've never seen before. And it's easy to get into some bad habits with regard to exercise, diet, and sleep. And for some of us, the stress and fear that come with this situation might compound all of the above. We want to help. Joining us remotely is our panel of experts tonight. Dr. Devon Hansen is an assistant research professor and sleep and performance research center at the Elson S. Floyd College of Medicine. Her research focuses on the impact of sleep deprivation and sleep disorders on performance and health. She's also a licensed mental health counselor specializing in cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. Mike Nilson is co-owner of U District Physical Therapy in Spokane. He specializes in sports performance training, and he's the head strength and conditioning coach for Gonzaga University. Lisa Randall is a registered dietitian, nutritionist, and certified diabetes education and care specialist. She's the clinical coordinator for INHS Community Wellness and coordinates outpatient diabetes education for Providence Healthcare. And Asa Lariviere is a clinical director at Frontier Behavioral Health. She oversees some of Frontier's outpatient programs, which include services for children, adolescents, adults, in addition to services that provide intensive treatment for people experiencing chronic mental health conditions. And welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for being here tonight. And a reminder to all of you that Health Matters is also streaming on Facebook tonight. Now, we won't be taking your phone calls, but we are able to take your questions on Facebook and by email and also text messages. So tap into our panel of experts tonight for any advice on what you're struggling with right now. And also tonight we are on healthmatters.org. All right, so let's begin, panel, by talking about what we're seeing right now, what each of you are seeing as professionals in your area of expertise. We're about 2 weeks into the stay-at-home order. We have a few more weeks, if not longer, to go. People are struggling a bit. Devon, what are you seeing as far as sleep goes?
What I'm hearing quite a bit from people is that they're having a hard time keeping a consistent sleep schedule, and that's going one of two different ways. They're either sleeping a lot more than they are usually able to, or they're sleeping quite a bit less because they're feeling really anxious at night. One of the other things that I've been hearing quite a bit, actually, and have been reading about is people have been having very vivid dreams that are kind of predominating their night. So those are kind of the main things that I've been hearing at this point.
Okay, and we're going to talk about some of the solutions to those very things. Mike, how about you?
Well, a lot of my athletes, my friends, my clients are experiencing a loss of community. Or, as you know, gyms in Washington have been shut down. So unfortunately, all our trainers have gone home. And we're just used to being in a gym all day, uplifting people, having other people uplift us. Thankfully, our physical therapy clinic's still seeing patients. But at Gonzaga, all our athletes have been sent home. And in addition to missing basketball and missing the workouts, I think they're missing being together. And we know that basketball is such a natural stress relief, or working out is, but also just being with people. So I think a lot of people are lonely, wanting to get back together and just have that sense of community.
All right, and Lisa, I'm sorry.
Yes, I've heard some people chat about weight gain. They have been less active than normal. Also, I've heard a lot of people talk about how they eat more at home and have been cooking more. And then the other thing that people have been talking about is just kind of like the community again of not being able to gather in restaurants and just having less of that community around food.
Mm-hmm. And Asa, has your staff been busy hearing from people as well?
Absolutely. It's interesting that we're doing this segment right now, because over the past couple of weeks, I think both our clients, but also colleagues and peers have really kind of had a heightened level of anxiety and sort of a what next, and we're not sure what to expect. And what I'm finding this week is that people are absolutely exhausted. And people who have experienced symptoms of a mood disorder or an anxiety disorder, they're familiar and they can recognize when those symptoms are increasing. And so it makes sense to them. But people who haven't, they're experiencing these symptoms maybe for the first time, and they're finding that they're exhausted, they're more prone to breaking into tears, they're experiencing sleep disturbances. And a lot of times our best coping mechanism when we're in crisis is to group together with people. And I mean, since the beginning of time, that's how we've dealt with trauma and crisis. And so our biggest coping mechanism has been taken away from us, and people are just completely uncertain with how what to do now.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk about stress, because that has to be a big piece. A lot of people are out of work right now, don't know if they're going back to work, when the next paycheck is coming. And again, as you mentioned, Asa, just what's next? There's a fear of we just don't know what's coming, and that starts to weigh on us. So as far as stress goes, and that can manifest in a lot of ways, can it?
Absolutely. And in many times people don't recognize that it is what they're experiencing is a symptom of stress or anxiety or depression, and that in and of itself causes anxiety, because for some folks, they have never experienced this before.
And what would be your advice at this point then for people that are feeling that stress start to build?
Well, I think it's incredibly important for us to maintain that connection with people that are safe and comfortable for us. I think that we have an opportunity right now to kind of be in the present and to slow down. I've personally noticed that there's no rush to complete projects. There's no, and so that's kind of unfamiliar to me. And you look around it and you really can take your time. So I think being in the present and recognizing that we have an opportunity to connect with our families, we have an opportunity to, engage in different hobbies or learn a language or learn how to play an instrument. But you have to make a concerted effort to recognize that we do have this opportunity, or you're just sitting there kind of poised and ready to respond to whatever's going to be thrown your way.
Mm-hmm. And Devon, the same can be said for sleep. I find that I can be fine all day until I lay my head down on that pillow, and then the thoughts start coming, and that stress builds as I'm trying to get a good night's sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you get into bed at night, typically that's the first time that you really have that's quiet, that you can actually kind of collect your thoughts. And so it's a perfect opportunity for everything that's going on in the world, everything that you are concerned about, to kind of flood in and overwhelm you to the point that you are no longer able to fall asleep. So that's very, very common. There's lots of techniques out there that can help people with that. But I think we also just need to be very mindful and kind of really nice to ourselves that we need to take it easy and kind of do what we can and be realistic about what our goals are.
Mm-hmm. And that's sort of a slippery slope too, because if we're not getting a good night's sleep, then chances are we're not doing a workout or taking a walk or eating the way we should be. It can start there.
Yeah, it definitely turns into a vicious cycle. So if you're not sleeping well, you're waking up and you have no motivation, like you mentioned, to work out or eat well. So we all get into these kind of circular behavior patterns, and sleep can be the start of it, or it could be, another part of that wheel.
Mm-hmm. And Mike, we know one of the best stress busters is, getting that heart rate up or, doing some weight bearing exercises. It can be the perfect solution. We just got to get motivated to do it.
100%. And what's unfortunate is the things that usually are best for us kind of go to the wayside when we get stressed. But I think this is a great opportunity to rethink what working out is, especially for our athletes that are used to being in a gym and having dumbbells and cardio equipment. At least for basketball, the end game of basketball is how well can you manage your body weight? How well can you move up and down, lunge, jump, push, pull, and all of those things don't require any equipment. So it's kind of nice to know most professional athletes, almost all the college athletes right now are doing body weight workouts. So for all the general public people that are at home thinking about, okay, how do I stay in shape? You could do it the same way that our college athletes are doing it, which is get out for a walk. Maybe if you like to run, if you like to, do core work, yoga, there's so many different types of exercise. You don't have to be in that mode of, lifting or I ride my bike or have to swim. I think this is a great opportunity to try something new.
Well, in fact, tonight you're going to demonstrate 3 different areas. We're going to do mobility, strength, and balance. So why don't we go ahead and start with the mobility piece and a few things that we can all do at home with very little equipment or no equipment.
Well, the best thing I've ever learned as a strength coach is that there's only 3 ways our body can move. Think about this. There's only 3 planes of motion on planet Earth. Just like there's only 3 colors that make up every color that we see, every movement that we make is made of the sagittal plane, which goes front to back, the frontal plane, which goes side to side, and the transverse plane is rotation. So today I'm going to show you how to create mobility, not just in that sagittal plane, which is typically dominant in working out. We're also going to create it in the frontal and transverse plane. So I'm going to step back here. And the first thing we're going to do, can you see me okay?
Yeah, looks good.
Perfect. We're going to take a little stride stance. And what's really nice about this is most of us are sitting down all day. And by taking this lunge forward, all of a sudden I'm lengthening all those hip flexors that get gunked up. And if you look down at my ankle, I'm also stretching out my calf muscle. And once I get in this position, I'm going to reach my hands far back, and now I'm stretching out my abdominals, chest, shoulders. In one movement, I'm getting a total body stretch. So that's the sagittal plane. And now that I'm in this position, I'm going to kind of oscillate front and back for about 10 seconds. And then I'm going to go side to side in that frontal plane. And now you can see that hip movement. Feels so good. And the last one, I'll keep my hands about shoulder width apart, and I'm just going to rotate. And these are the same exercises that we do with our college, high school, professional athletes. And so it's kind of nice because at home you don't need any fancy equipment. And just 3 movements, hands going front to back, hands going side to side, and hands rotating, you get a total body stretch.
So you should probably get out of your chair a few times a day and do that one, especially those of us that are working at home and on a computer and kind of stuck in that position all day.
Well, I would say a few times an hour, and that's being a little ambitious, but our body needs to move. And what's really great, if you really want to lift up your spirits, if you want to be sharper with the mind, the research shows that your body can do that. So, a lot of times we tell our student athletes when they're studying, if you really want to perform well on this test, go move, get out get fresh air, get a workout in, because activity through the body makes the brain works better. And we know that it also lifts up the spirit.
All right, and Lisa, the next piece would be food. And when it comes to stress, like so many, I'm a stress eater. I can do that grazing through the kitchen. I need to put a note in the refrigerator. I've seen a couple of memes that address that. How do we reel this in and really get serious about when we're eating and how we're eating?
Well, I think that you hit it on the head as far as just walking through the kitchen or areas of the house and just eating mindlessly. Being very mindful about what you eat, and you can do that a number of ways. One is just by, if you're concerned about weight gain, which a number of people are, just making the point to write things down, what you eat. Because what we know is that when people have to write it down, it becomes very conscious for one thing, and then they tend to not want to write it down, so they don't eat it. That happens a lot.
I like that.
Yeah, and I guess if there are things that you can have just laying around that are, if you do just kind of like to just munch as you walk through, are things that are very calorically not very dense. So not calorically dense, but nutrient dense. So if they have a lot of water, they have a lot of fiber. So there's not a lot of calories. Like think about calories per bite. If you take a bite of something and it's very dense in calories, then you don't have to take very many bites before you get over your calorie needs. But if you're eating things like fruits and vegetables where there's a lot of fiber, a lot of water, very low calories, you can actually eat quite a bit of them and not get into any problems with weight. The other nice thing about that is those foods tend to be very high in vitamins and minerals and antioxidants and all those things that go along with the exercise piece that help your mind work better. And now we are seeing that there is decreased risk of complications of the coronavirus when you have a healthier diet.
You know, talking about the fruits and vegetables, I'm trying to, and so many people are, minimize our trips to the grocery store. So what are some of those fruits and vegetables that have a little bit longer shelf life so that we're not running to the store multiple times a week to make sure that we're well stocked on those fruits and vegetables?
Yeah, so the first one is, you know, our state apple has a very long shelf life. But things that are, you know, kind of not as moist and are less, well, just kind of harder vegetables and harder fruits. So things like carrots and celery and root vegetables and apples and oranges, bananas. Bananas don't last quite as long, but a lot of times fruits and vegetables will last long if the way we care for them. So keeping things in dry, dark areas will keep them longer, less moist. When we bring home things, if we don't like wash them right away and we keep them in either cold, dark places or in the refrigerator, they'll last longer. And just prepare them right before you're ready to use them, they'll last longer.
All right, very good. Asa, we're spending a lot of time with our families, and if we're not with our families or our spouse, we're isolated in some cases. There's two different pieces there, obviously. And that can be extremely stressful and make us anxious, angry, lash out occasionally. What are some things we can do to sort of make the situation at home better?
Well, I think it goes back to something we were talking about earlier, sorry, where I think that a routine is critical, but not just a routine, but a structure that you recognize as specific activities that you engage in. So know that, you know, your brain is more active in the morning. And so when you're working from home, try to get in as much work as you can in the morning and save your meetings and telephone calls for the afternoon. Try not to be in your head in two places at once. Try not to be thinking about yesterday or tomorrow. When you're with your kids, you are 100% with your kids, but then you give some time to yourself and you set that perimeter in place and you recognize the things that you have in your schedule that is a treat, and you recognize the things in your schedule that you're reaching out to someone and you're helping someone, or that you are you're doing something that makes you feel productive. And so kind of labeling those things on your schedule, it's helpful to give yourself credit for the things that you've accomplished. So not crossing out those things, but writing done. And so you can look back on that and see what you've achieved. I think that also putting structure and a routine in place will support your dietary habits, and you can proactively determine what you're going to be eating throughout the week and what you can have for snacks before you jump up and you're hungry and you're just going to grab the first thing that you want. I think that there's different things that people are dealing with. I think isolation and loneliness is incredibly difficult for people. And so I just go back to that connecting with people virtually, telephone calls, and again, building that into your structure, recognizing how long you've been by yourself, and making sure that you have something to look forward to and that you've made a date with a group of people or one specific person. I've noticed a lot more like messenger threads of families where, they're posting pictures of their morning cup of coffee, their pets, what a niece or nephew is doing, his outfit of the day, and there's comments, and then they kind of seem to group together near the end of the day. And so when you're living with a family or with roommates, I think that sometimes you can even feel more isolated. So being really conscientious about communication, making sure that you're not trying to be everything to everyone all the time. Treat yourself gently, give yourself permission to just check out. Make sure that you're not spending too much time on going through every news article about the virus. And so set your clock and allow yourself time to catch up and scare yourself, but know that come a specific time, you're done for the day and you're going to move on to the next activity. Mm-hmm. I think that being conscientious about communication styles is really important when you're with people, when you're living with people, in recognition that people are going to be irritable, they're going to be experiencing things that they don't typically experience, and they're going to take it out on people that are safe. And so being conscientious about, how you're feeling, how you're interacting with others, the common using I statements, sharing with others how something they're doing makes you feel as opposed to blaming them, and just treating people the way that you want to be treated. If we start to get vindictive, it just kind of grows in an unhealthy way. But if we make a conscious effort to support each other and do nice things for each other, that grows in that direction as well.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes to the schedule, Devon, it really is key to stay on a schedule. I've been all over the board. A lot of my friends have been all over the board. One night you're up late, the next year it's I think key to really keeping that consistency, isn't it?
Absolutely. I always tell people, if you don't have any trouble sleeping, you don't necessarily have to be too stringent about a schedule. But especially now, if you're noticing that you're having difficulty sleeping, you really need to go back to basics and set a bedtime for yourself, set a wake time, get up at the same time every day. And then also, I think, create a good buffer zone before bed. So decide about an hour before bed that technology goes off. You're not reading, stats on how many people died today, or, what's going on with coronavirus or just anything else. And you're really kind of winding down, turning the lights down, and preparing yourself to go to bed. I think all of those things are really key.
Mm-hmm. And the same could be said for your routine as far as exercise, Mike. You got to stay on a routine.
Yeah, the biggest thing I think for being successful with the exercise is make a small commitment. The people I see are successful do a little bit every day. I know when I make mistakes is when I bite off more than I can chew. I say, I want to get in shape, so I'm going to run 10 miles today. And that's just a recipe for disaster because it's not sustainable. You usually get so sore that the next day you can't work out. And so with my athletes, I always say, make a 5-minute commitment. Not something that you necessarily want to do, but something that I have to do. And I love my job. I love going to work, but it's not necessarily a goal to go to work. I say I have to go to work, right? It's just something I just plan on doing. And you say, I have to do a 5-minute workout today because I know it's going to make me feel better. Well, the hardest part about working out is getting your shoes on and going outside. Once you get 5 minutes, that usually turns into 10 or 15 or 20. The biggest advice I could give is just make a small commitment, and that will start building a habit and routine.
Okay. And Lisa, let's get back to the preparing our meals at home and what we should be preparing as far as good, healthy food and keeping it interesting, maybe involving the family in that process.
Yes. And as we've heard from all the panelists here tonight, is when you struggle with something, it's really nice to have a routine or to develop routine. If you don't have a problem with it, you don't necessarily need the structure, but the structure is good. So thinking about, because we don't have all these commitments with time, think about when do we have breakfast? When do we have lunch? When do we have dinner? Do we have those on a schedule? And I think that when you have children, it's a lot easier. Then if you're by yourself, then it's, you can kind of skip. And then, like I heard tonight, you can not eat for a long time, get really involved in what you're doing, and then get really hungry, and then just grab the first thing that comes along. So planning meals and planning, especially now because we have to plan before we go to the grocery store. And then we also have to be flexible because when we get to the grocery store, there may not be what we plan to get at the grocery store. The nice thing, I think, is with the internet is that you can look at what you've got in your kitchen, and you can kind of do some searches for recipes online. And I literally will search, recipe with, sweet potatoes and something, and like maybe Brussels sprouts, and because that's what I've got in my refrigerator. And it is amazing what will come up for recipes. And then the nice thing too is that, you've got your tablet out there or a cell phone, and you can, have everybody helping and gathering ingredients and helping to prepare meals, because, that since there's a lot less activities, there's, I remember when, my kids were home, and we'd always have schedule for meals based on, was there a track meet, or was there a band concert, or right? So now that we don't have those things, we have a lot more time that we can plan things and prepare things from scratch, and have everybody join in and people can, or the family members can help choose the recipes as well.
Yeah, one of my favorite things I think about this happening and being at home with the kids, and mine are grown now, but would be the learning tool. You have an opportunity to get the kids in the kitchen, and school doesn't always have to be, from the books or from school. It can be things like learning to cook, or learning to do some new exercises, and learning again. There's so many opportunities right now to be able to work that into the family dynamic. All right, we have our first question tonight, and Mike, it's for you. It's from Abby, and she says, what are safe exercises to start off with?
I really like the progression that we're going to use tonight, which is, I think, mobility and light stretching. And the old way of thinking was no pain, no gain. And now all the research points to, if you have pain, you're probably not using your brain. And so the idea would be is start out with pain-free motion, because you will not get in shape in one day, but you can get injured in one day. And so if we can start out with 5 minutes of mobility, activate the muscles and the proprioceptors by going through a full range of motion, that little mobility stretch that I used tonight is a great place to start. And then I'm going to show you a body weight strength exercise that you can incorporate in. And then the third piece, I think, would be balance. And so if you can keep with those three things, light stretching, light body weight strengthening, and then I think always finishing up with some kind of balance exercise, I think that would be a great place to start.
Mm-hmm. Mike, do you like that stretching, say, before a more rigorous activity, like a good run or lifting or something? Do you like stretching before or after, or both?
What we do with our athletes is we really believe the most important thing you could do before exercise is actually warm up, warm the system up, get the heart rate going. That makes the muscles, they're going to perform better, and they're going to be less likely to be pulled or injured. So I actually like doing a light warm up, then going into the workout, and then finishing off with a cool down stretch. Because if we do the stretch beforehand, if we think about our muscles kind of like Laffy Taffy, when they're cold, they're going to be more brittle. But after they're warmed up, they're going to be able to be lengthened, nice and easy. And then you also think about the mentality piece. When I'm doing a slow stretch, it actually calms my nervous system down, it calms my breathing down. And that's exactly what I probably don't want to do before the workout. That's how I want to finish the workout. So I'd say warm up beforehand with a walk or skip or plane, anything like that, and then finish with an actual static stretch.
Okay, very good. Devon, a lot of people also waking up, going to bed just fine, starting, a good night's sleep, and then waking up in the middle of the night and having those difficulties getting back to sleep, and making sure that you get the full 7 to 8 hours, 7 to 9 hours. What is recommended at this point?
So what I would say is for those individuals that are waking up in the middle of the night is give yourself an opportunity to fall back asleep. So spend 20 to 30 minutes in bed. And again, that's not looking at the clock. That's just kind of what your body is telling you. And then if it feels like it's been longer than that, you need to get up, go out of your bedroom and engage in a really low stimulus, relaxing activity. So maybe go sit in your living room where it's pretty dark and just kind of listen to music or just sit there quietly and just engage in something until you start to feel sleepy. And at that point, you can go back to your bedroom and try to sleep again. And so obviously that's very difficult to commit to. So it does take some time. But people do notice that once they really commit to that and say, okay, I'm going to get out of bed and just kind of, break that cycle, they start to sleep a lot better very quickly.
I would guess don't grab your phone or jump on the computer or turn on the TV. Those would probably not be a way you want to go.
Right. And, and that's, I'm guilty of that as well. So we all want to do that. But again, it's not even just the light that you're being exposed to that can be alerting. It's also the content of what you're looking at. And, as we all know, what we're hearing and seeing online is not the most pleasant right now. So I would say definitely to avoid getting on your phone, turning on the TV, especially if you're waking up in the middle of the night.
Devon, what do you advise when it comes to alcohol before bed? Some people say it relaxes them, gets them to sleep, but it can also disturb your sleep, can't it?
Right. And I think, a lot of people are drinking a little bit more now. And so if alcohol is fantastic to put you to sleep, but as your body metabolizes it, it actually starts to fragment your sleep. And so what people will report is they actually have worse sleep. So ideally, you don't want to be drinking heavily, and you definitely don't want to be drinking heavily right before bedtime.
Aza, would you address also the alcohol piece at this time? I mean, people may be drinking a little bit more, and in some cases, maybe too much.
Yeah, I think that we know that alcohol is a depressant, and it can certainly, and in some cases, for some people, so is marijuana, and it can contribute to depression and anxiety. And I think it's just important to be aware of how you're being impacted, and to certainly reach out. I think we feel as if everything's closed down, but there's a lot of support out there, and there's treatment accessible to people if they feel like they need some support with that. Identify different coping mechanisms that are, that make you feel a little healthier. Again, engage with other people, and be kind to yourself.
If you are living with someone and you start to recognize some signs that you become concerned about, whether it's drinking alcohol or other abusive type behavior, at what point do you have a conversation? How do you begin that conversation with that person?
Well, I know that we don't respond well to unsolicited advice and or to accusations. So I think that sort of reflections when you're talking with someone, and to ask them and get them to question what could be contributing to their mood or behavior that isn't desirable. Ask them, I wonder if you are doing anything recently that could be contributing to this, or I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but I feel like this when you're doing this, and so I don't think in any situation, no matter how serious the problem is, it's not received well when you tell somebody, well, you've definitely got a problem. And so I think maybe looking up resources and letting people know that they're there and accessible can be helpful sometimes. Reaching out to different friends and family members and encouraging contact with that individual can always be helpful.
And Lisa, let's talk about alcohol when it comes to trying to remain on a healthy diet. Can we incorporate a little bit of red wine here and there, or even a cocktail, and still kind of stay the course?
Yeah, I mean, the alcohol is pretty high in calories. So, it depends on what your calorie goals are, but it's certainly okay to to have a glass of wine.
Yeah, a couple times a week maybe, and especially if you are trying to remain on a healthy course, or even try to lose some weight.
For a weight loss, well, if you are really serious about weight loss, it's very hard to drink alcohol and lose weight at the same time. Just because a lot of people don't realize that you don't really need a lot of calories in a day to maintain your weight. And to lose weight, you need less. And so if you're taking calories in as alcohol, it's really hard to lose weight. I personally have found that if I ever get to the point where I need to take off a few pounds, I just stop the alcohol.
Yeah, that's an easy way to go. Mike, can it mess with our workout and our routine, and does it mess with building muscle as far as drinking alcohol at this time especially?
Yeah, the nice thing is for most athletes I work with, they're under 21, so it makes it easy to. But I really handle it like I would with maybe a treat or sugar, things that I would not say are good for you by any means. But if you're going to have dessert one night, I think that's great. You wouldn't want to have 20 desserts in one night. If we start seeing that, we're probably going to be looking and probably looking under the hood why this is happening. But I think if someone wants to be able to partake, they're of age and have a glass of wine at night to be able to enjoy time with friends, I think that's great. Just know it's not going to give any performance benefits.
Mm-hmm. And right now, the internet, it's our friend, it's our enemy. We're using it in ways we've never used it before. For instance, the way we're using it tonight just to do this show remains social distancing and be able to put on our program. So it's a great tool, but it's also at this point, cutting into the hours of the day or maybe interrupting the time that we could be out taking a walk. And, some tips maybe from all four of you on just pushing away from that for a while and what you suggest we might do just to sort of strike a balance when it comes to checking the internet and using it as a productive tool. Devon?
So I would go back to the idea, especially related to sleep, that you really want to turn off technology and create that buffer zone at least an hour before bedtime. That will help your body prepare to do what it wants to do naturally, which is sleep at night. And it helps just kind of to reduce your arousal level and prepare yourself, again, to be able to go to sleep. So that would be my tip, particularly related to technology and sleep, is just create that buffer zone before bed.
Mm-hmm. And Asa, it's our friend, it's our enemy, it's our constant companion these days.
Yeah, I think that it's most effective, it's not effective to tell yourself that you're going to restrict yourself from something. It all of a sudden becomes the most desirable thing in the world. And people with children, if they say no screen time, it doesn't go over so well. And so I think it's important instead to identify activities that you're interested in, that you want to commit to, and naturally you won't pick up your phone and start scrolling through the internet. Maybe it's a game that you play with people, either online or with your children or your family, playing music and singing, being goofy, having a picnic in the middle of your living room floor. And I think that naturally, if you're engaged in activities that you've proactively identified and committed to, you're just not going to find that you're spending as much time on the internet. Mm-hmm. And you can find a lot of ideas on the internet to do.
And Lisa, you mentioned one great piece, and I've used it myself. Put in a list of ingredients, and by golly, there's a recipe out there somewhere to use those ingredients. It's a great tool for that. Are you finding it useful as well with clients as you're working with some of the diabetes patients, or some of your staff is at this point, to sort of actually help move them along without being able to see them in person?
Yeah, with some of the video visits that we're doing now, we have the opportunity to share, things on those as well as in person. But yeah, we use that a lot in general, just because it's just so vast, and people always want to know, what's a good recipe, or what's a good recipe book, or but the internet is just, it's amazing. I've been a cook for a long time and have a lot of recipe books, but I honestly will just Google or whatever search engine you use to find recipes, and they're fabulous. And the other thing that I see that people do is they prepare these meals, or they prepare these things, and they're so proud of them, right? Because a lot of people are cooking more than they usually do, and they take pictures of them and share the pictures with people, and that's been very nice to see.
Yeah, I think we're actually getting back in the kitchen more, which is is nice. Less takeout, although we're trying to support restaurants. And that's something we get to in a minute too when you're ordering out as well. But Mike, I want to get to you first on the internet piece. There are an explosion of workouts from your gyms, the gyms that are now not able to do business. They're putting some of their workouts online. I know you're actually doing some workouts online as well. That's been a great tool.
Oh, it's been so awesome. I mean, that's been one of the best things for me, increasing my knowledge as a strength coach, is to be able to go on social media or YouTube and get great ideas for how to progress training, how to make it creative for your athletes. So I think it's been a great tool for me as a strength coach. And now for all of us staying home, I know myself and a lot of my friends have created free workouts that you can just pop on and do from home. And so there's no excuse not to be able to go work out. Now, the bad thing about having your phone or the internet is if you actually take it in the workout, you can get sidetracked. You finish a set, well, maybe I'll just check Facebook or email, and then 30 minutes later, the workout's done and you're playing on your phone. And so I really like that idea of getting your exercise, know what you're gonna do, set the phone away, and then just play, work out, move.
Yeah, well, and that workout needs to be good for the mind as well as the body. So you need to leave those distractions behind.
100%. I think, we talked about the mind, body, spirit. I think that's probably the best thing for your mind and your spirit is to actually work out. And if I'm sitting there playing on my phone in the middle of the workout, I think we're probably harming both the mind, the body, and the spirit.
All right, now that I have you on here, we did a couple mobility stretching moves that were incredible. Those were really good for us. Let's go to the strength piece and have you demonstrate something for us there.
Well, what's kind of cool about the strength piece is we're going to use that same truth that there's only 3 ways our body can move: front to back in the sagittal plane, side to side in the frontal plane, and rotation in the transverse plane. And the reason why this is so important is every joint in your body moves in all 3 planes, and any muscle that crosses that joint moves in all 3 planes. But if you look at traditional strength training, you're going to see a push-up front to back, a lunge, a crunch. Everything is forward and backwards, and we tend to forget about that side-to-side rotation. So the exercise I'm going to show you is called the 3D lunge. And we're going to start out with that forward lunge, right? We've all done this before. I'll do it from the side so you can see me. If you're just starting, maybe it's a step. For people that are more advanced, you go all the way down. If you're really good in shape, we'll do isometrics. We can come down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and come back up. So that would be my front to back lunge. And then I'm going to move into a lateral lunge in that frontal plane. I might start out as I step here, lengthening all the muscles of my adductors. I might go lower. For all you people that are really strong and in shape, I might come down, and I might have to hold that for 5 seconds. So we've gone front to back. We've gone side to side, and this might be the most important out of all of them. This is a transverse plane lunge. I'm going to have my toe pointing the camera, and then I'm going to turn at a 90-degree angle. And now this opens up my hips, my core, as I come back. And so what's great about this is now my hip is being lengthened in all 3 planes. And so quick recap, I'm going to do a forward lunge, a lateral lunge, and I will do that transverse plane rotation lunge.
Okay, so what muscles are we working there? It seems sort of obvious, but what are we working when we do those lunges?
Well, the guy that I love to study, he would say, yes. All you need. What's great about when you do total body movements in all 3 planes of motion, right there, I was working my calves, hamstrings, quads, adductors, glutes. Every muscle in my body had to decelerate that movement. The old school way of working out would be, I'm going to isolate one movement. But then you go look at function, whether or not you're on a basketball court or in the backyard playing with your grandkids. Every muscle is all working to synergize to be able to complete the movement. So with those 3 lunges, you're working all the muscles of your core all the way down.
Yeah, it's great, and it does not have to be complicated. Those are easy enough to do, and you can do them anywhere without any equipment. So those are perfect, and then we'll get to the last one here in just a few minutes. Devon, napping. How do you feel about napping? Again, does it take us off our schedule? Are we entitled to a little bit of a nap? And that goes for adults and kids too, who are off their schedule as well.
I think in general, napping can be extremely helpful, especially for adults. I would say, a nap maybe 30 to 40 minutes, no later than maybe 3 to 4 in the afternoon. If you feel that you need to take a nap, can be very, very helpful. For kids, they're off their schedule, they're off their routines. I always say let them nap. But of course, if it's getting really close to bedtime and it's going to interfere with that, you'll want to limit that. But yes, in general, naps can be very effective as long as you aren't trying to nap for, an hour, 2 hours late in the afternoon. Again, that's going to just take away from your sleep drive that you're building. And then you'll start to probably notice you'll have issues falling asleep at night.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk more about kids. They're out of school, they're out of their routine. It's hard enough for parents just to deal with everything they have to deal with. And then this piece comes along, and again, kids are off their schedule. Set bedtime, making sure that they're getting to bed and the routine stays the same, Devon?
Yeah, to make your life easier is just to try to keep them on the schedule that they are during school. If they can maintain that, their mood's going to be better. They're going to be more productive during homeschooling, during the day when they're home with you. And I think, as we see too in the summer, when we let them kind of slide a little bit, or I do with my kids, it's difficult to get them back on the school schedule. So I would say, to make your life easier, just try to keep them on that school schedule, and make it as consistent as possible.
And Asa, let's talk about kids. Depending on age, I guess, how much they know about what's going on. They know that things aren't normal right now. So what might parents be watching for if they start to be, some concerns they might have when it comes to their kids?
I think that you're going to see behavioral problems that, inexplicable anger or frustration that's, misdirected because they don't have their coping mechanisms. They don't have their distractions, and they don't know how long this is going to last. For some of them, it feels like it's a lifetime. I think it's really important to plan things for them to look forward to. And I also would encourage people to reach out to their friends that have small children. They don't get to, go for a run or take a break or have a happy hour. It's constant. And even though we're social distancing, we're still a community. And I really want to encourage people to reach out if they need assistance, but also to reach out and offer assistance. So some ways that can be really helpful is if you schedule a date with your friend's children and you spend an hour coloring, and you identify that friend's going to go spend that hour focusing on themselves, taking a bath or talking on the phone with a friend, and allow them to get that break. I think the kids need it. I think the parents need it. And I also think it's really important to teach children about structure, about routine, about identifying things in their routine that they can label as helping others, respecting yourself, engaging in work or exercise. And now this is a treat. But also those parameters, especially for the parents that are working at home, to establish those boundaries and let their kids know when they're available, and when they are available to be 100% available, but then also have times where they can just spend that time by themselves.
And Lisa, it would be really easy for parents right now to just throw their hands up occasionally, and because they're frustrated and stressed, and let the kids grab the salty or the sugary snacks out of the kitchen. Any advice for those parents in making sure that that there is some nutrition during the day other than maybe meal times?
Well, and kind of like we mentioned before with fruits, I think that I think about this and I say fruits and vegetables, and people think, oh yeah, we hear all this all the time, but really fruits are delicious. And right now we're getting into the season when they are very delicious, and children love fruit. And I think that sometimes as parents, we think, oh, that's boring or whatever, but kids actually love it. So having it around is good. And another thing that you were talking about, having kids help you in the kitchen and using that as a lesson, kind of, where you learn, what is a quarter of a cup, what is a half of a teaspoon, and the combination of ingredients that go in together and make a recipe. whether it's soup, where it doesn't really matter if you double the vegetables or not, versus if you're baking and you have to be very precise about some things for it to turn out right. And, teaching those kinds of things, and understanding that when you do things and they're successful, that you can be successful, and then it makes cooking fun, I think.
It's a good time now too, and it's always a good time to be eating those immune boosting foods, and the ones that have anti-inflammatory properties to them, and making sure that we're really taking care of ourselves with food at this time.
Right, so fruits and vegetables, certainly, especially those very deep colored fruits and vegetables, but also whole grains and beans. Beans are actually very high in antioxidants. People don't think about it like that, but they are. So yeah, think about very colorful, high fiber, natural. I tell my patients a lot of times, as closer as it comes to off the tree or out of the ground is a good way to think about eating.
And Devon, when it comes to food before we go to bed and setting those routines, the old wives' tale of warm milk, is there anything that you advise that is good to help us sleep, or that we should avoid?
Yeah, two things. I mean, really, you don't want to go to sleep really, really hungry or really full. So those are both going to set you up for kind of a poor night of sleep. So if you do find that you are, hungry towards bedtime, it's perfectly fine to have a little snack. It can be kind of carb based. There actually is some research out there that shows that warm milk can be helpful, or warm tea or something. Herbal tea, that can all be really helpful. Also, again, just going back to this idea of kind of overindulgence that we may be getting into right now with alcohol and food, is you just want to make sure you're not going to bed too full. That's really going to set you up for a night of disaster and indigestion and just poor sleep quality.
Mm-hmm. There's also a lot of products on the market, whether they're natural or that will help promote sleep. Any of those that you recommend?
Well, the things that you can buy in a drugstore or the supplements, they're not regulated by the government, so you don't really know exactly what it is that you're getting. I will say that some people I would work with would take things like valerian root or melatonin, and I think that those absolutely can be helpful, but typically people aren't taking them appropriately, especially melatonin. They're not taking it at the appropriate times of day. I always go back to basics and just say, you keep a good sleep schedule, protect that time, wind down before bed, and truly your body will do what it wants to do naturally.
All right, Mike, let's get back to you. We want to make sure we get in the last piece here, which is the balance piece.
And this might be my favorite part because we worked on mobility, we do strength, a lot of people do quickness exercises. And the thing about those three things is you can never utilize any of those skills if you don't have balance. And so we're going to go back to that same tried and true principle, 3 planes of motion, sagittal, frontal, transverse, but we're going to do it with balance. Now, most people do a balanced exercise like this. Can I just stand up and hold this position? But the thing about balance, you really don't need balance and stillness. You need balance and motion. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to that same single leg balance. And now can my foot go forward and backwards? Or can my foot go side to side? Or can my foot rotate? And you can see if I'm a soccer player, these are things I have to be able to do. Reach out and get the ball. If I'm a basketball player, I might have to reach forward with my hands and backwards. I might have to go sideways and sideways, or I might have to rotate. So everyone in the audience, that might look real simple, but what's kind of fun is if you get on one foot and you start getting your hands above your head, and especially if you look at your hands, it's going to be really challenging to be on that foot. But what the cool thing about balance is the way you improve it is you practice. And I think out of all the things we've done, if you can have balance, that's going to keep you healthy, keep you safe, and improve your performance.
Now, okay, so I'm just starting out with the balance piece. Can I hang on to something when you first start out and then ease into it?
Great call. So I'm hoping that the resolution on this film is not very good because you can see me lose my balance over there. Even the pros will lose their balance. I think for sure. Even the high-level athletes, standing close to a wall is really nice because I think you'll find as you have more confidence, your balance gets better. I mean, I'm really, really solid on ground. If you put me 30 stories up in the air, all of a sudden I clinch down. So I think having something stable to hold on to would be a great idea.
Very good. Yeah, all three of those, great. And again, you didn't use a single piece of equipment.
No, I think that's the biggest myth, is that you need equipment to work out. All we need is our body weight. That's the most important, the best tool that we can use.
All right. And for people that might want to add a little extra weight, you hear soup cans or water bottles. Do you advise using anything, and how much weight would you use?
Well, I would challenge people before you even use weight. Are you really mastering your body weight? Because if you can do a two-legged squat, I wouldn't necessarily add weight to it. I'd see, can you go one leg? And I think there's so much room for improvement. You look at those gymnasts that are able to do some of these exercises with their body weight that we have, our big, strong athletes, Division I athletes aren't able to do. So I would still recommend use this time, and really it's kind of a blessing in disguise that we don't have weight, because I think we can start exploring some of those body weight exercises that are even more challenging than using dumbbells or barbells.
Okay, with just a few minutes left to go, there is a lot of uncertainty. We don't know what's next. We're hoping to start to ease back into being able to spend time with our family and friends, get back to work and all that. But some final thoughts from each of you as we maybe do start that process and how people can handle it as far as your area of expertise. And Devon, let's start with you.
I would say, just to kind of sum up what we've already talked about, try to keep a routine, try to keep things as consistent as possible. Be mindful of what you're looking at before you go to bed, creating that buffer zone, and just being really aware that, if you have one bad night of sleep, that doesn't mean that tomorrow is going to be a bad night. You used to have another opportunity. That's the nice thing about sleep. We have an opportunity every day. And just be, again, really kind to yourself during this process.
And Deza?
I think just remembering that the things that people are experiencing is a normal reaction to an abnormal situation, and being aware of how you're behaving and the changes that you have. Ironically, one of the things that we see is just lack of interest and lack of motivation, and those are symptoms of depression. And then people beat themselves up because they're not, meeting their goal of engaging in exercise or healthy eating. I would encourage people to think of individuals that they're aware of that live by themselves and reach out. Look for risk, ask the hard questions. And then in addition, we have used social media so much to portray a life that isn't always what's really going on. Mm-hmm. And I think now is the time to allow ourselves to be vulnerable and to reach out and ask for assistance or connections, and schedule those dates. And if it's serious, there's help. And so there's crisis lines and there's resources that can support people. It's not closed down.
Thank you. And Lisa, quickly?
I think that now is the time that we have changed our lifestyle so much that you can take advantage of this and change some of the habits you do with food, and always know that when you eat healthier, you feel better. And the more you eat healthy and the more you feel better, the more you want to do that, and not make a big this idea that you have to change everything or eat perfectly every meal every time, but just make a change or a few changes that will just increase the amount of healthy foods you eat.
Okay. And Mike, I'm sorry we ran out of time, but I think I know what you're going to tell us, and that's to keep moving. I appreciate it. And thanks to our panel for being here tonight. Very helpful information. And that's going to do it for this edition of Health Matters. You're going to find some helpful links and phone numbers on the Health Matters page at ksps.org. Until next time, stay home and stay healthy. I'm Teresa Lukens. Good night.
Health Matters is made possible with the support of WSU Health Sciences Spokane, WSU College of Medicine, and by Providence Healthcare.
With every twist and shout and every mended heart, we see you. You who trusts us to take care. Providence. Health for all. Care for you.